one out drop celebs, and nobody else reported about it except for one outlet. Like I told you guys, I am looking at Inner City Press's live tweets, but as I said, he doesn't report everything. So I look at everybody that's reporting, from CNN to CBS to AP News to New York Post to New York Times, Washington Post, all of them. For some reason, the New York Post was the only one that mentioned that they came up. But before I get into cross-examination, let's finish with her testimony. Before she came back on the stand, Diddy's attorneys tried to fight the fact that they wanted Dawn's testimony from Friday off the record, and they did not want her testifying. The judge said he'd make a decision on Monday, and as you can see, he decided that she can testify. Remember how her testimony ended on Friday, where she said that Diddy told her and Kalina Harper that people go missing if they talk. And at the start of her testimony this morning, she confirmed she took it as a death threat. She also testified that the abuse wasn't a one-time thing, but it happened frequently. She told the jury whenever Cassie would try to speak up for herself, she witnessed Diddy punching, dragging, kicking, and choking her. She said one time in New York, Diddy allegedly punched Cassie in the face right before they were about to do a gig in Central Park. Because of that, she said Cassie's eye was swollen and she had to wear sunglasses. She also talked about another time in West Hollywood where they were at a restaurant and Diddy punched Cassie in the stomach. She said when they got into the car afterward, Diddy grabbed Cassie by the neck, slapped her on the mouth, and told her to shut the F up. Dawn said the abuse was so normalized that Diddy's security didn't step in. And that's when she said that included Harve Pierre, D-Rock, and Capricorn Clark. If you didn't know, Harve Pierre was the former president of Bad Boy Records. And Dawn alleges that Diddy and Harve Pierre told her and others not to talk about what they saw. She also testified that Harve Pierre told her that Diddy would say it gets dark and lonely if you don't listen. She also testified that she would tell Cassie to leave the relationship and that Cassie would look fearful, but she would also look torn. And when Diddy found out that she was telling Cassie this, he told her to stay the F out of my relationship and then said something bad will happen to you. She said for her own safety, she wouldn't intervene. Now came cross-examination, and the defense definitely tried to poke holes in her credibility. She mentioned multiple times how her story changed, how she brought up stuff during her testimony that she didn't say to the government. For example, the skillet situation, they said that sometimes you said he hit her with the skillet, other times you said he threw eggs at her, and another time you said you heard the skillet hit the wall. Dawn's response was, I'm doing the best I can to remember. This was a long time ago and I tried to block it out. They also grilled her about substances. Dawn had said that Diddy used the thing you do on 420, Molly, K, Snow, that she testified a dealer named One Stop had it all, including Plan B and birth control. But Diddy's attorney pulled up past interviews where she never mentioned Diddy using Snow. Dawn's response was, as more time goes by, she remembers more. They also brought up the fact that after she had left Bad Boy, is it not true that your music wasn't as successful? To which she said yes. And then they asked her, and then you reached out to Diddy to work with him again? She said yes. They're obviously trying to show that she clearly couldn't have been that scared of him if she was willing to go back and work with him. She did say when she spoke to Diddy, she would often speak to him softly and she would call him bro, and she would do these things to keep herself safe. Diddy's attorney then brings up the restaurant incident where she said she saw Diddy punch Cassie in the stomach. Diddy's attorney asked Dawn when she was questioned about the restaurant incident, why didn't she mention who was there? And she brought up the names Usher, Neo, as well as music executive Jimmy Iovine. Diddy's attorney asked, any reason you left these individuals out when the government asked you the question? Why didn't you say their names? Dawn responded saying, I'm not sure. You have to ask yourselves, why did Diddy want their names brought up? Is it because they plan on bringing them in as witnesses to testify that they didn't see anything? But there was also another name that was brought up, which is Lorianne Gibson. If you watched Making the Band, then you remember she was the choreographer on the show, but she was also a huge choreographer at that time. She had filed a lawsuit against Diddy in 2007 because she alleged during this scene, Diddy tried to throw a chair at her. Now, we never actually saw it happen because they got into an argument. Diddy said, turn the cameras off. And when the cameras came back on, she was shouting, leaving the room, saying, I'm not scared of you. The camera would also cut to the men who looked at the situation like, what the hell is going on? Of course, at the time, Diddy denied that ever happened, but who do you believe? Once cross-examination was over, the prosecutors were able to redirect, and that is when Lorianne's name came up. Remember, we had just heard that Dawn had reached out to Diddy to work with him again, and the prosecutor asked her, why did you reach out to Mr. Combs? Dawn responded saying, one of the judges on Making the Band, Lorianne Gibson, I wanted wanted to reach out, but then Diddy's attorney said objection. So the prosecutor tried again, saying, how often did you hear from Mr. Combs after you left Diddy dirty money? And she said sporadic. They then asked her, why did you reach out? And she said to help Kalina Harper. That is very interesting because Kalina Harper had put out a statement about a year ago when Dawn filed her lawsuit against Diddy. And in that statement, Kalina said that even though Dawn is suing Diddy and she's speaking about her experiences and the things that she saw, it's not a universal experience. In other words, she's trying to say she saw nothing, she knows nothing. For Dawn now to say on the stand that she was trying to help Kalina, I do want to know, what did she mean by that? Now, Lorianne Gibson did come up again during recross because Diddy's attorney asked her, you admit you reached out to Mr. Combs to re-engage. You claim only to have a relationship with Lorianne Gibson, but if you got back together, you'd have to see Mr. Combs more, right? To which she said, yes. And they tried to ask her, you sued Diddy for money, right? And she said, for justice. But the suit asks for money, right? Dawn said, yes, and they said, no further questions. And that was the end of Dawn's testimony. Carrie Morgan, who is Cassie's former best friend, is on the stand testifying against Diddy. They are on a lunch break, and she'll be back to continue her testimony after lunch. Carrie and Cassie were best friends for over 17 years. She met Cassie on a modeling shoot when they were teenagers, and they lived together in Manhattan and were inseparable until 2018. That is when Carrie said Diddy physically assaulted her, and she ended their friendship for good. When taking the stand, she told the court she did not want to be there. She said, I've moved on from all these people and their problems, and that she was testifying because she was subpoenaed. Carrie said Cassie changed once she got into a relationship with Diddy. She lost her confidence big time, and she lost her spark. In terms of Diddy's jealousy, she said that he would call Cassie over 50 times in a row, screaming at her, criticizing her looks, and questioning who she was talking to. He said Cassie felt like she couldn't leave because he controlled everything from her job to her car to her apartment. She felt like she was trapped. When talking about Cassie doing substances before Diddy, she said that Cassie did not. But she said Diddy often provided substances like X, Molly, and Mary J. She said that Diddy would be doing all of these substances, but that sometimes she and Cassie would do OP8s together. When talking about Diddy's presence, she said that it was dominating and unpredictable. Talking about physical assault, she said the first time she saw him getting physical with Cassie was in a house in Hollywood Hills. She says Diddy and Cassie were arguing in the bedroom while she stood in the foyer. She said she saw Diddy pushing Cassie and possibly punching and kicking her too. She said Cassie did not fight back and that Carrie yelled at Ruben, who was Diddy's security, to do something, and he did not. In fact, she said Ruben refused. Afterwards, her and Cassie ran out of the house and hid behind a neighbor's front steps for 30 minutes as Diddy searched for them. Second major alleged assault that she witnessed was in Jamaica in 2013. Cassie was taking too long in the bathroom and Diddy snapped. She heard gut-wrenching, terrifying screams and then saw Diddy dragging Cassie by the hair down the hallway. She alleged she saw Diddy push Cassie to the ground. Cassie hits her head on the brick and collapsed into a loose fetal position. Carrie said she thought Cassie was unconscious. Cassie later ran barefoot into the woods and that she and Diddy got on separate golf carts looking for Cassie. She found Cassie and they hid in a ditch for hours. The other incident was the hotel surveillance incident at the Intercontinental Hotel. Said when Cassie came home, she was wearing a hoodie, she had a black eye, and she collapsed on the couch and appeared numb. 30 minutes later, Diddy showed up banging on the door with a hammer trying to get in. Carrie said she was terrified and called Diddy's assistant and security, begging them to stop. Police eventually came and Cassie refused to show her ID and cooperate. She told the court she didn't think Cassie cared if Diddy came in and unalived her. Carrie now talks about her own assault that happened in 2018. Carrie said when Cassie was in the bathroom, Diddy came up on her, choking her, and then he threw a wooden hanger that hit her in the head near her ear. She fled the apartment and texted Diddy's assistant saying he's going crazy and he lost it, but the assistant shrugged it off. Carrie said she considered filing a lawsuit, but about a month later, Cassie came to her and said that Diddy would give her $30K, so she took the money and signed an NDA. She said she hadn't spoke to Cassie ever since. Carrie also said that most of Cassie's friends worked for Diddy, but she was the only one who did not. And when Cassie spent time with those people, she convinced herself that the abuse was okay. Carrie said you could tell they were convincing her it was okay. They're now on a lunch break, and I will be back with more.
Dang, most of all her friends work for him. That's scary.
After lunch, Carrie Morgan finished up on the stand. They did cross-examination and redirect, and she's now officially done. When cross began, Diddy's attorney, Mark Agnifilo, asked Carrie Morgan when her and Cassie met. He asked if it was 2004, and she corrected him, saying it was 2001, and they met while they were waiting for Polaroids to be developed. Then pivoted and asked if Cassie was ever jealous of Kim Porter, to which she said yes. She said Cassie was jealous because she could never go to the New Year's Eve parties. When asked if Diddy was ever jealous, she also said yes, especially when Cassie was spending time with Michael B. Jordan. And Carrie said she believed that Cassie was trying to leave Diddy at that time. Now, this was the time when Cassie was in South Africa doing a movie with Michael B. Jordan, and Carrie talked about how she went to go visit Cassie on set. She talked about how she had learned about Diddy's relationship with Gina and how he had this full-on relationship with this little girl. And asked why she called Gina that, she said she acted like it and she was younger than us. Carrie said Cassie found out about it and she wouldn't go away. He wouldn't leave her, so it just went on for a really long time. Carrie also testified that when she went to South Africa to see Cassie, Diddy's assistant was there, who they're calling Mia, and Mia is supposed to be a witness. Carrie said she was pretty close to Cassie, close enough that she came with her to South Africa to help her out. Cassie had testified last week that this person they're calling Mia had witnessed Diddy physically abusing her. Mark Agnifilo then asked Carrie why she and Cassie stopped speaking. You could tell by his line of questioning that he was trying to paint the picture that if Cassie meant so much to Carrie, and if they had this 17-year-plus friendship, why was it so easy for her to walk away, and only for $30,000? But Carrie said she did not support me when Sean assaulted me, and I draw the line at assault. Also gave more information about what happened that day in 2018 when Diddy hit her with a wooden hanger. Diddy's attorney asked her if she and Cassie were using substances that day, because obviously they're trying to paint the picture that that was the reason Diddy went off. He said no, Diddy was angry because he wanted to know who Cassie was cheating on him with. Now remember, this is 2018, which means it's likely her now husband, Alex Fine. Because of Diddy's alleged assault, she said she had fingerprints on her neck. She took herself to urgent care. She was so dizzy, she threw up multiple times, and they told her she had a concussion from being hit in the head. Remember how she testified she met up with Cassie a month later, she signed an NDA, and she got $30,000? Before I say this, I want to remind you guys that at this point, Cassie had dealt with 10 years of abuse, so we are not going to point fingers or blame her at all. Carrie said she had met with Cassie a month later at a pizza spot at a Hollywood hotel. That was the last time she had spoken to Cassie, and she said Cassie did not take her seriously. In fact, Cassie accused Carrie for over-exaggerating the situation. They have to remember, Cassie had dealt with 10 years of the most psychotic, scariest situations she's ever been put in. So I could understand her mental thought at this point. But obviously for Carrie, who had never been through it, she's like, wow, my friend is not supporting me. And that is when she ended the friendship. At one point during Cross, Diddy's attorney showed her a book, and it was Louis Hay's Self-Help Affirmations, and asked why she sent these words of encouragement to Diddy. She said, I don't remember sending that. Diddy's attorney also tried to point out that Carrie is saying she went to urgent care, but in her interview, she said she went to the hospital. Why does that matter? Again, they're trying to show inconsistencies, but I don't think the jury's going to care. Back on redirect, they brought up Jamaica once again. When asked what exactly happened, she said he dragged Cassie by her hair down a 50-yard hallway. Was he accusing her of cheating? She said no, he was mad she took too long in the bathroom. Despite everything Cassie had been through, she said there were times where she did believe Cassie and Diddy loved each other. In her own words, there were times I thought they should try to work things out. When asked why they never spoke to each other again, she said, I don't know why she doesn't reach out to me. I'm sure she doesn't have the same number anymore. Up next is David James, and he was Diddy's former assistant. So allegedly Last on the stand to testify today was David James, who is Diddy's former assistant from 2007 to 2009. David said he had first applied to work for Diddy when he read about it in the New York Times that Bad Boy was looking for an assistant. He said he faxed, emailed, and even hand-delivered his resume. During the interview, he remembered someone from HR pointing to a photo of Diddy saying, "This is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve in it." After getting the job, he said he would put in 20 hours a day, working until 3 a.m. and often working 3 weeks straight without a break. He traveled the world with Diddy and said his job was to make every space comfortable for him. Spaces like studios, venues, green rooms, even hotel rooms where he would set up riders, which were a list of Diddy's personal requests. And he talked about how strict it was, saying that security guards like D-Rock, Uncle Polly, and Bonds told him to stay in his lane when he would ask too many questions. He talked about meeting Cassie in Miami at a party on Star Island. He said they were outside smoking when Cassie turned to him to say that this lifestyle was crazy. When he asked her, why don't you just leave? He said, she said, I can't. Sean controls everything, my music, my apartment, my life. He said it was clear that Cassie felt like she couldn't escape. Another conversation they had was when Cassie was excited for her album to come out, when they shared a cab going to the Sundance Film Festival. But he said, I don't remember that album ever coming out. He also said he once overheard Diddy comparing Cassie to Kim Porter. He said Diddy was telling someone, Kim is my queen out in LA with my family, but I've got Cassie right where I want her. She's young, she's moldable. Now that was all we heard for today. He's obviously going to continue tomorrow, and the government listed who they're going to be bringing on the witness stand tomorrow. That would be another male escort, Diddy's former personal chef, and Cassie's mother. Last on the stand to testify today was David James, who is
So Cassie mother gonna testify tomorrow.
Day 6, Diddy trial. I'm going to make this super fast because we have a short lunch break. But Diddy came in this morning, really seemed to be in good spirits, hugged his lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, and Mark Agnifilo. And they had some discussions about witnesses getting certain testimonies struck. And at one point, Mark Agnifilo said something along the lines of that, this case is becoming based on gossip. He brought up the fact that there is a chef, Diddy's chef, is expected to testify, who was allegedly assaulted. And Agnifilo says, well, where is this in the indictment? This has nothing to do with racketeering, etc. And the government came back and said, look, the chef is a victim of forced labor. And there was a lot of discussion around this, but I want to give you one little piece of that before we go to Dawn Richard, finishing her direct examination. Now, I'm going to make this kind of general, but Dawn Richard, she testified about the Cassie skillet incident with Diddy. And she said that after she witnessed this, that both Diddy and Harve Pierre, they kind of threatened her at 2 different times. And one of the last things Diddy had said to her, according to Dawn Richard, was, if you tell, people go missing. And during the cross-examination, which was done by Diddy's female attorney, Nicole Westmoreland, and I thought she was effective, but she was a little nervous seeming at first. That's just my opinion. She forgot to say objection, but I mean, again, that's just why I kind of thought she was nervous. But she pointed out that about 7 of Dawn Richard's prior conversations with the government, she left that part out, the whole people go missing part. And Dawn Richard would get this transcript. She would look at it and be like, I don't know, like there was a note taker there, but I don't know why that I didn't say it. She admitted that her memory has changed throughout the years. And then the government, got her to elicit during their redirect that, well, your memory has changed because you've tried to suppress these bad memories for so long. And then we kind of helped you elicit these memories by talking about your trauma and doing all these interviews. So yeah, defense went on to say, well, okay, so let's say you met with them 8 times. You really only remembered this alleged death threat the 8th time. They showed her a transcript, I believe, from April or May of 2025, where she did say, people go missing. They also called her out, the defense called her out on another, statement from her civil lawsuit, where she had described Diddy pulling Cassie out of a car by the hair and dragging her onto the grass, and a lot of people saw. And Dawn Richard said, oh no, that was something that my lawyers, they messed up on. It was a miscommunication, excuse me. And then the government got, during their redirect, to say, well, you were actually thinking of another violent incident, so it wasn't completely made up. Let's see what else. So Dawn Richard talked about how, she worked with Diddy from 2004 to 2009 with Danny Kane, and then 2009 to 2011 on the Dirty Money Group. And she left in 2011, and she described, Diddy would call her on FaceTime sometimes to check in, and Dawn said, the best thing to do to kind of, keep him at arm's length or keep him happy was just be nice and polite and cordial. Well, the defense kind of got up there and said, well, didn't you call him and try to work with him after that? And she, at that point was forced to say yes. And so she did, reach out and initiate communication several times first. And then the government, when they did their redirect, they got it out of her that she only reached out to him because of Kalena Harper, essentially, and Kalena wanted her to. And then it got a little spicy with Nicole Westmoreland and Don Richard at one point. Sorry, my papers. Because she said something like, you were very successful when you were with Sean Combs, Anthony Payne, Dirty Money, and talking about how she sold all these albums, and she alluded to the fact, and she actually said the words, no offense, but you haven't sold nearly as many albums since then, and I'm paraphrasing, and then at one point, Westmoreland kind of said, you were successful, and Don Richard is like, I am successful, so it was kind of like this little moment, I guess. I was like, ooh. And then, they talked about how she filed a civil suit after Cassie. And I was a little surprised that Don Richard didn't really seem to know much about her civil suit, what her attorneys wrote in it. She really seemed to not, I don't want to say she was elusive, because she really seemed to genuinely not know. I want to make sure I didn't, oh my gosh, I'm almost forgetting. A crazy celebrity name was dropped today. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, there's so many no's I almost forgot. Usher. Don Richard said that Usher witnessed Diddy punch Cassie in the stomach at a dinner in LA. And there was another, Jimmy Ovine was mentioned, and I think there was a Neil something. I didn't quite get this, so maybe look out for that name. But Don Richard said that they were at this dinner in LA, and this is who was in attendance, and Diddy punched Cassie in the stomach, and then she left, and she was like embarrassed, and then he kind of like choked her something on the way home. But yeah, she said Usher was there. So I'm assuming Usher saw this. We don't know if Usher saw it with his own eyes, but he was at this dinner. And the government also made a point after all of these questions. The government would say something, or about the violence or whatever, the government would say, well, who of Diddy's employees were there? They would always want to know which employees were there, if any, and there always was a bodyguard, assistant, whatever, present. She also testified about this drug dealer named One Stop, who would sell Plan B and birth control and come to the studio, and she also corroborated Diddy's LV med bag that he kept his drugs in. And she testified that Diddy wore a gun in his back pocket, and that scared her. Then the defense came up and said, how many times did you see this gun? Basically insinuating that, you worked with him for over a decade. You only really saw this gun 2 or 3 occasions that she testified. And then they said, did you see him take it out? Did you see him wave it around? Did he threaten you with it? And she said no. Defense ended their cross, or their recross, I should say, just by asking Dawn what she wanted out of the civil suit. And Dawn, she would say, she wants justice. She wants to be compensated for the work she did with Diddy. And they'd be like, okay, so you want money? And then she was like, yes. Like, I think she was like, done, I'm done. And then we saw the start of Carrie Morgan's testimony. Carrie Morgan is Cassie's friend, her former best friend, a model. They were friends from 2001 to 2018. And this is the friend that Diddy allegedly hit over the head with a wooden hammer. Oh my gosh, I have to hurry up. And okay, so I'm gonna make this general for now, because I'm gonna make another video later. But Carrie Morgan testified that there was an incident where, there's a couple. There was an incident in Jamaica where Diddy got mad at Cassie for taking too long in the bathroom. And, when she came out, they went to the hallway. They rented this house in Jamaica, and Cassie let out some guttural screams. She described them as guttural and terrifying. And they ran away and hid in a ditch for what quote, felt like hours. I'm trying to think. I think I wrote that down with Cassie. They hid behind a tractor. I'll have to double check that. But also, just really quick, last thing before I run for now, and I'm sure I forgot things, but I'll go back later. But last thing, Carrie Morgan was at Cassie's house during the 2016 after the beatdown at the Intercontinental. She describes Cassie coming home with the hood, a black eye, puts her bags down, basically, and said that Cassie was kind of despondent. And then she described Diddy as showing up 30 minutes later, banging on the door with a hammer. Now, somehow throughout all this, Carrie Morgan doesn't know how, but the police were called. The police show up, they ask for Carrie Morgan's ID, she gives it to them. They ask for Cassie's, Cassie doesn't give it to them. And they end up leaving a card. The detective leaves a card and they leave. And Carrie, we were shown a Celebrate communication between Carrie Morgan and Christina Coram, Diddy's chief of staff, talking about.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
day 6 of the Diddy trials. So today, Don Richards, Carrie Morgan, and even one of Diddy assistants was on the stand. I'm hearing they didn't hold back, y'all. So I'm gonna report on everything they said happened. I'm gonna break it down conversation to conversation, just like as if you were in the courtroom watching it. But before I do that, y'all already know what to do. Buckle your seatbelt, go grab some snacks, hit that like button, and share this video. Don Richard goes first. AUSA says, when Diddy said people can go missing, what do you think he meant by that? Don goes, I thought it meant we can die. They ask, what did you observe between the relationship with Diddy and Cassie? Don goes, well, I witnessed him kick her, drag her, and even punch her in the mouth. AUSA says, why? Don says, well, it's whenever she spoke up for herself. Diddy lawyer quickly says, objection! The judge looks and says, overruled. AUSA asked, who in security witnessed these things? Don goes, D-Rock and Bonds. AUSA asked, so where did Miss Ventura get hit? Don says, she got hit in her nose, her lip, her chin, the back of her head, the front of her head, her neck, her elbow, her legs, her foot, everywhere. AUSA asks, were there a time you were in New York for a festival? Don Richard goes, yes, in Central Park. AUSA asks, so in the residence, what happened? Don goes, he punched Cassie, and she came into the bathroom crying, and you could tell that she was visibly upset and hurt. Diddy lawyer quickly says, objection! Judge looks and says, sustained. AUSA asks, what injuries did you observe? Don says, her eye was swollen. Big ass swollen eye. AUSA asked, so why did you stay with Miss Ventura after the incident? Don says, I wanted her to feel supported. So then AUSA held a picture up and asked Don Richards, what's this? And it was a picture of her and Cassie both wearing sunglasses. And she said, why y'all both wearing that? She said, for solidarity. So AUSA says, so when the next assault happened, who was there? Who was present? Don says, it was D-Rock, it was Capricorn Clark, and it was Harv Pierre. AUSA says, so when they witnessed this going down, did they do anything? Don goes, no, none of us did anything. Y'all, that is crazy. You got grown-ass men, or people that call themselves men, watching this whole shit go down, and they ain't intervene? It's only one of two things. They was either scared of Diddy, or they didn't want to lose that money he was giving them. Y'all let me know down below in the comments. If you was in this situation and you witnessed that going on, are you going to intervene? Are you going to stop Diddy? You going to beat Diddy? What you going to do? So after this, Don Richards says, when they were on their way driving back to LA, Diddy smacked the fuck out of Cassie, and they told her to shut the fuck up. AUSA says, and how did the passengers respond to this? Don says, well, we stayed silent for the rest of the ride. So Diddy told Cassie to shut the fuck up, but everybody in the ride seemed to shut the fuck up. That's some scary shit if you ask me. Don Richards says she told her, so if this man can do this to Cassie Ventura, a girl that he said he loved, he was in love with, what do you think he would do to me and his employees? She said, so when she talked to Diddy, she always spoke to that man with kindness. She didn't want to get treated like he was doing Cassie. AUSA asked, so did you ever try to intervene in their relationship? I said, no. And that was for my own safety. AUSA asked, so did you see Mr. Combs using drugs? On goes, yes. Weed, ketamine, Molly, cocaine. AUSA says, opiates? Don goes, now that, nah, I never saw him. AUSA asks, so who bought Diddy these drugs? She leans in and said, it was a dude named One Stop. And he had everything I named that Diddy took. But more though, y'all. He had Plan B and he had birth control. He had everything. AUSA asks, so did you ever see Diddy with a handgun? Don says, yes. I seen him with a handgun. He used to be on his lower back. AUSA asks, who else had guns? Don goes, well, you know Diddy, and his two security guards, D-Rock and Bonds. AUSA asks, so how did you speak to Diddy when you spoke to him? Don says, when I spoke to him, it was always a soft tone. And I always used to call him bro. AUSA asks, so why did you never disclose the abuse you seen? She said, I was told not to talk by Diddy and Harv Pierre. They told me to keep my mouth shh. AUSA asks, so when did you speak out? Don goes, in 2024. Don goes, I seen Miss Ventura get on the stand and tell the Diddy lawyer says, objection. Judge, sustained. AUSA asks, did you see Miss Ventura file a civil lawsuit and then you decided to file your own? Don goes, yes. So now it's time for the cross-examination, y'all. Diddy lawyer steps up. Westmoreland. West goes, you're aware there's a motion to dismiss your lawsuit, right? Don goes, I have civil lawyers. West goes, you sat with the prosecutors and your allegations have changed. Don says, no, I've been consistent. West goes, you testified that Mr. Combs attempted to hit Miss Ventura in the head with a pan full of eggs and she dropped down to the fetal position, right? Don says, yes. West goes, did you ever say you heard a pan hit the wall or you didn't see it? Don, I don't recall. Don goes, would you agree with me if I said it's been hard for you to keep your story straight when it comes to this egg incident? Don goes, I told it as close as I could. West said, the day after you said that Mr. Combs said people go missing. Don says, yes. West said, let's go to the interview you had on March 18, 2025. You didn't say anything about Mr. Combs saying people go missing. Don says, I don't recall that. West goes, oh, don't worry. I'm going to show you a document. West goes, isn't the first time you said this was a week ago? Or would you like me to show you your previous interviews? Don says, I know what I said. West says, you said Mr. Combs made a death threat, one that you didn't recall, 7 times. West goes, okay, let's move on to the alleged incident you said happened before the Central Park concert. You are aware there were camera crews. Don says, no, not in the bathroom. West goes, you were filmed in the park. Are you aware if a video has been turned over? Don goes, no. West says, so about the guns, you didn't tell the prosecutors about that. The guns that you said you seen at Diddy house. Don says, they didn't ask me. West goes, so you never seen Diddy pull out a gun, wave it around, aim it, put bullets in it, or cock it back? Don says, no, he just had it. West says, did you tell the government that you never seen Mr. Combs do cocaine? Don says, I don't recall. West says, your testimony has changed on quite a few things. Don goes, as time progresses, I will start to remember more things. West says, so you said you seen One Stop sell drugs. Did you see him take money? Don says, yes. West goes, wait a second now. Didn't you tell the government that you never seen anyone pay him? So you lied, right? Don goes, no. Shit getting crazy. Part 2 coming. I didn't know it was this.
Carrie Morgan, who is Cassie's former best friend.
All right, y'all, let's talk day 6 of the Diddy trial. And baby, Dawn Richard did not come to play. She took the stand on record and said, Diddy used to drag Cassie, punch her in the face, kick her in the knees, and every single person around him stayed silent. Dawn said the abuse would happen every time Cassie tried to speak up for herself. For those of y'all saying she was a willing participant and she could have left at any time.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like
She also
button.
said that Diddy slapped Cassie across the mouth one time when they were on a road trip and told her to shut the F up. And everybody in the car just was completely silent. They asked Dawn why. She said because they were scared. Dawn said she only stayed quiet for her own safety because Diddy and new suspect Harvey Pierre, executive at Bad Boy, told her not to say a word. That every time Dawn tried to do her own thing, Diddy would FaceTime her just to remind her he was still watching. So then they went into talking about the drug use and the control. She expressed that he was doing ketamine, weed, coke, Molly, and had a plug, One Stop, that provided Plan B and birth control and more. And she also testified that Diddy and his security officer Bond and D-Rock always kept guns on them. So then they asked her, well, why did you decide to come forward in 2024? Dawn said that when she saw Cassie testify last year, that made her come forward, but the defense tried it. They tried to say her story changed. Dawn said, I told it as close as I could remember. And then they asked her why she never said anything. And she said Diddy once told her, people go missing. That's a direct quote from Dawn. Now, that's not hearsay. That's a testimony directly from Dawn Richard in this federal RICO case. And even if half of this is true, the whole circle was built on fear, silence, and control. They also named Harvey Pierre today, which had not been named before. See what the feds are doing? Anyway, I'll keep...
Day 6 of the Diddy trials, part 2. West goes, it was you who reached out to Mr. Combs to work with him again, right? Don says, yes. West goes, but he threatened you, right? But you still reached out to work with him again. Don says, yes. West goes, okay. West goes, so the song you released as a single by yourself has not did the level or near the level it did when you were with the group Danny the King or with Diddy's lately, right? Don goes, true. West goes, and you reach out to Mr. Combs to try to make more money, right? Don says, yes. Then I'm hearing they go into a long sidebar, y'all. So after the long sidebar was over, AUSA comes back up for a redirect. AUSA asks, so why did you file your civil lawsuit? Don says, when I worked for Diddy, I didn't get no sleep. And the conditions were horrible. AUSA asks, so in every meeting with the government, you said that Mr. Combs beat Miss Ventura. Don goes, yes. AUSA asks, why did you reach out to Mr. Combs again? Don goes, there was a judge on making a band named Lorraine Gibson. I wanted to work with her, so I reached out. The lawyer said, objection! Judge, sustained. AUSA asks, so how often did you hear from Mr. Combs after you left his group? Don says, sporadic. AUSA says, and why did you reach out? Don said, to help Kalina Harper. AUSA says, no further questions. West goes, can I have a brief conversation at the bench? A sidebar? After the brief sidebar, West comes back up, and he did a recross. West says, we will make you reach out to Mr. Combs, only to re-engage with Lorraine Gibson. But if y'all got back together, you will have to see Mr. Combs more, right? Don says, yes. West goes, you sued for money, right? Don, for justice. West goes, but the suit asked for money, right? Don says, yes. West said, no further questions. Then they went on a short break, y'all. The government now calls Carrie Morgan to the stand. AUSA asks, where do you live? Morgan says, in LA. USA asked, who is this? Carrie says, that's me and Cassie. AUSA asks, what was you and Cassie's relationship? Morgan says, we were best friends. And then Morgan says, her boyfriend assaulted me. AUSA asks, do you see him here today? Morgan said, yes, in a yellow sweater. AUSA asks, so why are you here today? Morgan says, I got a subpoena. ASU says, where did you live with Cassie Ventura? Morgan says, in Manhattan. AUSA asks, did Cassie drink? Morgan said, not much. USA asked, any drugs? Morgan said, no. AUSA asked, what was Cassie doing for work? Morgan said, She was modeling and she did a video, Me and You. AUSA asked, when did you learn that her and Mr. Combs were dating? Morgan said, in 2007. AUSA asked, did you travel with Cassie and Mr. Combs? Morgan said, yes, to Ibiza and Miami. AUSA asked, what drugs did Mr. Combs provide? Morgan said, Molly, ecstasy, and the marijuana. And you name it. AUSA asked, what drugs did Mr. Combs take? She said, all of them. They asked, did you take any drugs with Cassie? She said, opiates. They asked, how did Mr. Combs act? She said, he would yell. And Cassie ended up losing her self-esteem, her confidence. AUSA asked, did Mr. Combs talk down on Cassie? Morgan said, absolutely. AUSA asked, did he ever contact you for Cassie? She said, plenty. Too many times. It was one time he contacted me over 50 times in a row, back to back to back to back. They asked her, did you ever see Diddy beat on Cassie? She said, yeah, and the first time it was in Hollywood. And one of his security guards named Ruben was there when it happened. AUSA asked, what did Mr. Combs do to Cassie? She goes, he kicked her. They said, what did she do? Morgan said, nothing. She said, I told the security guard Ruben. She said he indicated that he wouldn't. Morgan said, her and Cassie left the house and hid at somebody else front stairs. AUSA asked, and when was the next time? Morgan said, when we were in Jamaica. She said she seen Diddy drag Cassie by her hair, and she ran to get her phone so they could leave. He said when she came back, Cassie was on the ground like she was knocked out, but then she seen Cassie get up and run. And she said her and Diddy hopped on 2 golf carts that was out there. He went one way, she went another way to find Cassie. And she said she found Cassie, and then they hid in a ditch. AUSA asked, did Mr. Combs ever assault you? Morgan says, yes. He hit me with a wooden comb, and he choked me. AUSA asked, where did he hit you? Morgan says, behind the right side of my ear. AUSA asked, what did he express his concerns about? Morgan says, about Cassie and who she was cheating with. So after that, y'all, was pretty much nothing. She ended up getting off the stand after she said, after the incident, she ain't seen Cassie after that. I guess they stopped being friends. So now another one of Diddy lawyers come up for a cross-examination. They go in to talk about her and Cassie when they became friends. They asked her, was it 2004? She said, no, 2001. They asked her, did you ever meet Kim Porter? She said, yeah, I believe at a concert. They said, was Cassie jealous? She said, yeah. She said, but hold on now. The other way around, Mr. Combs got jealous too when she was talking to Michael B. Jordan. So I'm not going to go too much on her cross-examination because she kept her story mostly the same. But then Diddy's assistant came up. David said he worked with Diddy from 2007 to 2009, and he was there because he got subpoenaed. David said when he worked, it was 20 hours a day, and he also did security too. He said Mr. Combs had a lot of girlfriends. Kim, Sarah, Tara, Yana, and Cassie. David said he asked Cassie before, why don't you leave? And she told him that Diddy runs her life. He controls everything, her music, what she eat, etc. He said that Diddy told him that Kim Porter was his queen and that Cassie was basically the side chick. He said Cassie was essentially his side chick. He said he had her right what he wanted her because she was young and moldable. And there's where they called it a day, y'all. Y'all.
Day 6 in the Diddy trial just concluded for the day as the jury were dismissed. But first, I'm going to tell you everything from Dana James, one of Diddy's assistants, who gives some insight into the relationship and dynamics of how he worked under Diddy and the relationship with Cass. Now, David says that he applied to Bad Boy Records after reading an article in the New York Times where it said that the chairman of Bad Boy Entertainment was looking for an assistant. David said that when he was brought in by the senior VP of Human Resources, they said to him, and quote, "This is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve within it." David shared that Diddy's security team often said to him, basically stay in your own lane, stop asking so many questions. And David was hired under Diddy from 2007 into 2009, and on the stand today, he remembers the first time interacting with Cassie. He said that Diddy had rented a yacht in Miami, and it was the first time he spoke with her, which he often didn't do. But he says that him and Cassie spoke, and Cassie said, "Man, this lifestyle is crazy. I can't get out." Diddy controlled her music career, paid her apartment, and gave her allowance as she was sharing this with this assistant, David James. And David said that he believes that Cassie couldn't get out easily, which makes sense. Everything was connected to strings. her career, her apartment. Diddy controlled it all. And while on the stand, David brought up another conversation that he had with Cassie, where they shared a cab ride to the Sundance Film Festival, and he says that at this time, Cassie seems really happy. And he remembers having a conversation with Diddy, where Diddy said that Kim Porter was his queen. In regards to Cassie, Diddy says that she was very moldable. And Diddy said, and quote, "I got her right where I want her. She's young," talking about Cassie. And that concludes the Diddy trial day 6 recap of every.
It's day 6 of the Diddy trial, and his former personal assistant, David James, takes the stand to give his testimony. Let's get into it, family. Next witness is David James. Why are you here? I've been subpoenaed.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
New witnesses, new abuse claims, including a witness who says Diddy assaulted her too. Day 6 of the trial was
Testimony continues in Diddy case as former assistant takes the stand. On the second day of testimony in the
Alright, y'all, quick Diddy update, man. Sorry for the late update, man. I had a busy day covering other things, and it took me a while to actually read this stuff so I can get to y'all. But they went through 2 witnesses, and then they had a 3rd witness that they had to stop on. So the girl, Dawn, she pretty much gets up there, and Diddy's defense destroys her. You know, she had this, set story that she wanted to tell, but she didn't realize that she was getting Miss Westmoreland from the YSL trial, and she went up there and destroyed her entire testimony. Miss Westmoreland was calling out everything. She called out all her inconsistencies. She said that she didn't even speak out about this whole Diddy thing until 2024, after Cassie filed her lawsuit. Then she went and filed her own lawsuit, not even knowing that because she's here, testifying, Diddy and his team went and filed for a motion to stop her lawsuit because she's sitting here testifying X, Y, and Z. They pretty much point out the fact that, she's pretty much was saying things for the money, and even, this was the nail in the coffin for her whole testimony, said that even after all that, she reached out to Diddy to work back with him after all this stuff that she's claiming. After that, it was nothing the prosecutors could pretty much say to make her story sound anything besides, telling us what he did to Cassie, but it's not showing us the charges that he's charged with. She had nothing to add to whatever they're trying to make him be guilty for his charges. It's just more stuff about seeing what he did to Cassie. The arguments, the this, the jealousy, you know what I'm saying? Them not speaking up for her, being around. But it's like, it's not about exactly what he's charged with. You know what I'm saying? Then Cassie's old friend, Kelly or whatever her name is, gets up there. And it's like, she was the person that wanted to paint her and Cassie in the light where she act like they didn't do anything. She act like they was never on this. She never seen that. It's like, if you was around Cassie at this time and she just testified and said she was doing this stuff, it's like, how are you around her at these times, but you keep acting like you never seen her under the influence? You know what I'm saying? It's really starting to make it seem like you trying to make her seem too perfect and everything was Diddy's fault. You know what I'm saying? With her, they did, the defense really didn't go too hard on her because there really was nothing to really say. But it was more so, it just came off like she was trying to protect Cassie's image and still talking about, Diddy being abusive and, going in and then arguing and stuff, but not really too much about the acts that he made her do. I guess she wasn't around for all that. So it's like, if the prosecution's going to keep up this trail with painting Diddy in this light about how he treated Cassie, it's like, that's not what y'all trying to make it seem. If y'all want to really nail him to the cross for what he supposedly had did, you need more stories about what they were doing. If you're not going to do that, it's not going to work. And they left it off with one of his assistants that came in and he actually knows stuff. One of the last things that he said before they ended for the day was that, that he was talking about, all the plethora of girls that Diddy had at the time. He was saying that he likes Cassie because he has her where he wants her and he can mold her. Those were his words. I mean, that's what was the assistant's words. He could mold her. So that might sound like grooming and that might help the case a little bit, but everything else was pretty much a dud if you ask me. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section, man. Also, hit that follow button. I just hit 10K.
Have a good day. Yeah, how big is Diddy? Whoa. Wow. Can I get the 10 minutes? Now, man. Monetization. Go too far. Yeah, man. I want to get my ass beat for 10 million. Is it a freedom of speech?
Here's a recap of Day 6 of testimony in the Diddy trial. Danity Kane's Dawn Richard took the stand for a second day of testifying. Testimony left off on Friday with her telling prosecutors that Diddy had threatened her after she witnessed him abuse Cassie, saying that it would be in her best interest not to tell anyone, and where he was from, people went missing when they talked. She then talked about how Diddy had complete control over Cassie's career, saying that she could be successful, but it would be on his timeline. He also talks about how she decided to ultimately stay out of Cassie and Diddy's relationship for her best interest to keep herself safe. She also mentioned a civil lawsuit she has pending against Diddy that she filed last year for groping, assault, and imprisonment. Following Dawn's testimony, Cassie Ventura's ex-best friend, Carrie Morgan, took the stand. Carrie had made mention that the only reason she was there testifying was because she was subpoenaed and that she did not want to be there as she had moved on with her life and away from all these people and the problems. She said that she remembered Diddy abusing Cassie on multiple occasions, but two came to mind that she remembered best, including one where they were in Jamaica and after being beaten by Diddy, Cassie decided to run into the woods barefoot. She chased after her, found her, and they hid in a ditch for what Carrie says felt like hours before returning to the house. Also recalled the 2018 incident where she says that Diddy choked her and then threw a wooden hanger at her head. She said she was left with finger marks around her neck. About a month after the incident, she met up with Cassie, and Cassie said that Diddy would be sending her $30,000 and to sign an NDA, and that was the last time she had spoken to Cassie. The final person to take the stand today was Diddy's former assistant, David James. He didn't go over much just yet. He just went over his job duties. He said that also he had been told by Diddy's security staff to, quote, stay in his own lane, and he didn't ask too many questions as he knew it would be best to just stay away. Court did end early today, a little after 3 p.m. It did seem kind of abrupt to release the jury that early, as the court last week lasted until 5 p.m., unless the prosecution requested that they resume tomorrow, as they may have more in-depth questions.
Hi, Daddy! And here we are. We meet again for your daily dirty, diabolical Daddy trial update. What do we have? It's Monday, May 19th, 2025. Day 6 of the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Let's dive in, shall we? As the federal trial of Diddy goes into its second week, we have Dawn Richards. Yes, that Dawn Richards from Danity Kane. Yes, Danity Kane from Diddy's MTV show, Making the Band. We started off with the prosecution asking her a bunch of questions, and she was basically there to testify about seeing Diddy abuse Cassie Ventura. Yes, that Cassie from the hotel video. She also said that she experienced a time and witnessed a time where Diddy hit Cassie with a skillet frying pan. She also said that there was a time when Diddy told her and another girl that people that talk have been known to disappear. And yes, she said she took it as a direct threat to her life. When the defense got up, they questioned her and burned her. We have to say it. They said that she had been interviewed by the feds at least 8 times in the past and had never mentioned that story. Never once. She basically said, I don't know what you're talking about. But the internet and the courtroom is talking about the Dawn Richards testimony. It didn't go well. But again, when you're scared of someone, maybe you don't remember everything. Who the hell knows? But on to the next witness. But before we do, Dawn also mentioned a time that Diddy had allegedly hit Cassie right before they were set to go on stage to sing and perform somewhere, and that resulted in a black eye and a bulging eye that she had to cover up with sunglasses during the performance. Then we had Carrie Morgan, a friend and assistant to Cassie Ventura, testifying in the case. Morgan also testified that in an incident in 2018, Diddy assaulted Morgan with a wooden hanger, resulting in a concussion where, after threatening legal issues for Diddy, he paid her $30,000 to shut the hell up, apparently facilitated by Cassie. Then we had David James, Diddy's personal assistant. He talked about how working with Diddy was a chore. 20-hour days, and it was a nightmare, basically. It was hard work. He didn't know, it never ended. It was the culture of working for Diddy. As we know, Diddy is 55 years old, and he's facing 5 federal charges, and you can go look them up. I'm not getting in trouble on TikTok, okay? If you want the
Last on the stand to testify today was David James, who is Diddy's former assistant from 2007 to 2009. David said he had first applied.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
Last on the stand to testify today was David James, who is Diddy's former assistant from 2007 to 2009. David said he had first.
Yeah, I don't know why TikTok.
Hey, y'all.
They're going to pick up on the former stripper.
The Diddy trial's back in session, and Dawn Richards is on the stand, and what she is saying is so concerning. Right now, she's talking about an incident in 2009 where she saw Diddy hit Cassie over the head with an egg skillet.
Week 2 of the Diddy trial started today, and it was all about witnesses to the abuse. Dawn Richard testified that she saw Diddy punch Cassie in the face and stomach, and that he choked and slapped her. The defense crossed Richard with a female lawyer, which is what they've been doing for the other female victims in the case. They raised her civil lawsuit and inconsistencies in her stories. During previous interviews with prosecutors and her lawyers, She said that Diddy hit Cassie with the frying pan and that he threw eggs at her. She also left out details about drugs and guns during those previous interviews. Diddy's lawyers implied that Richard fabricated her story for financial reasons and because Diddy didn't sign her as a solo artist. Cassie's former best friend, Carrie Morgan, also testified, and she's been one of the best witnesses so far. She saw Diddy punch and drag Cassie across the floor when he was sober. Once, it was because Cassie was taking too long in the bathroom. After the hotel attack, Diddy went to Cassie's apartment and banged on the door with a hammer. Police showed up, but Cassie refused to cooperate, so they left. Morgan begged Cassie to leave, but she was unable to do so. Diddy controlled every aspect of her life, her finances, her apartment, her car, and her career. This control explains the psychology of abuse and is strong evidence for the sex trafficking charges. Morgan did say that Cassie was jealous of Kim Porter and another woman named Gina, though. Diddy choked Morgan and assaulted her with a coat hanger. Diddy paid her $30,000 to sign an NDA, but that was the end of her friendship with Cassie. David James, Diddy's former assistant, also took the stand at the end of the day. He said Cassie told him that she couldn't get out. His testimony continues tomorrow, and I think he knows where the bodies are buried.
So Don.
Diddy tried. Several photos from Diddy's freak-offs are being shown.
All right, guys, it is getting messy. Diddy was caught.
I hate when they whisper. Like, why is you whispering?
Okay, I have officially threw up in my mouth. Federal agents testified today in the Diddy Combs trial, and they brought photos. They brought receipts. Let's take a look at them. What in the Miami Vice is going on here? There's so many photos that we're going to have to go through these pretty quickly. But remember when federal agents arrested Diddy back in September of 2024 and they swooped in his hotel room and got him by the hand and said, let's go, bro. But he came to New York to turn himself in and brought all of this with him. I don't know who in the Sam Hill said, Diddy, go to New York and turn yourself in and take all of this with you. So I guess let's take a look at the Diddy starter pack. Well, let's start with this. You got 2 pink baggies that was found inside of this orange pill bottle. Not exactly secure, if you know what I'm saying. This pill bottle is not even in Diddy's name. It's in somebody called Frank Black's. $9,000 in cash in his wallet with the Visine, like he's gonna fool anybody by now. And then this combo, Astroglide and baby oil together. He brought it with him. What did he think was going to go down before he went and turned himself in? Did he think he was going to go turn himself in, post the bail, or talk them into getting Doom the bail? Because remember, it was like $50 million or something. And then come back to his hotel for a celebration event? Agent Benda from Homeland Security actually passed around these pink baggies to George. I mean, look at the wardrobe choices. He was going to look fly getting arrested. You got to make sure you got 55,000 pairs of shoes. And we got the Dr. Teal's bath salts going on over here. I have to say, I have this kind of tub and those kind of salts, but I don't have all of this over here. I understand the muscle aches, though. Not from freak-offs, but from just growing old. What is that? He's got phones plugged up, phones in the safe. I don't know.
You go to bed?
Y'all, this is really like,
Clean
this
that
guy
car out.
really thought he was going to walk out of the jail as soon as being booked. literally cannot believe it. After all the things we cannot believe until this point, this one takes the cake. Come on. What's going to happen tomorrow in the Diddy trial? Make sure you bookmark this so you can find your way back. I'm putting all these photos at the end of this video.
Come to the Diddy party, say you all up.
They just released the faces of the male escorts related to Diddy's trial. Jonathan was mentioned a lot in the case. Apparently Ash is in jail for, yes, you heard that right. And apparently there's a whole series about it and it's on Paramount. I believe it's called Social Media. All right, here are some more escorts and some more. This is Jules. And then there's this guy as well. If you know 50 Cent is a troll, he posted these and said, where are the women at? So yes, these are all the escorts that participated in the FOs. So honestly, I don't know what I was expecting them to look like, but not that. The fact that one of them is in jail for
In jail for unaliving
me.
someone.
Like, what do you guys think about that? I really just thought that was insane. I was not expecting that at all. I honestly wonder what made them release like the photos of the different escorts. Well, I know a whole lot of people have a lot of different opinions on this, especially 50 Cent. Like, he is absolutely hilarious. But I want to know what you guys think, y'all thoughts, opinions, anything. Let me know down in the comments.
Patriots literally just stepping out of court. This is crazy, guys. I was in the actual courtroom. I got in there, my man KK, it worked. Diddy made eye contact with me, looked at me and waved hello. He looked around and waved hello to me. Oh my God, this is crazy. So lots of stuff happening. Dawn Richard took the stand again. And guys, I hate to say it, the lawyer for Diddy, Miss Westmoreland is her name. She's a bulldog. I told her that. I saw her out in the hallway during a break. I was like, you are good. And she's like, thank you. But I mean, Miss Westmoreland destroyed Dawn Richards on the stand. I hate to say it, but that's what everybody coming out is going to say, that Dawn Richard was just totally discredited on the stand. Why? Because she had 8 different meetings with the feds, the government. Oh man, is that Gene Deal? Can I say hey to you for a second on my TikTok? Guys, this is Gene Deal. Yeah, I've been reporting on you for a while, man. I'm Secret Service Sam. Guys, this is Gene Deal. Gene Deal, how are you feeling, my friend? Give my Patriots an exclusive. What do you think's going on in there? Guys, Gene Deal is the main man. He's the bodyguard. He has been the one leading the entire front on this Diddy campaign. Right? I mean, besides Jaguar Wright, you're the most credible person we have. You're Diddy's ex-bodyguard. Tell the folks, man. You don't want to say much? Come on, Gene.
Did it, Playboy.
Come on, Gene. You're always saying something. Give him something here. What do you think? You think Diddy's going to get off, or you think what are we looking like?
I think the prosecution is doing a great job. They need to keep up the good work.
Right.
I think they went real lenient on them because they could have hit them with way more charges
right.
than they did. And that's it.
What do you think about Dawn Richard? Miss Westmoreland was like, the lawyer was destroying her on the stand, her credibility. She had 8 different times she met with the feds, and they're like, why did you not mention anything about Diddy threatening your life and all that time? Do you believe Dawn Richard?
A lot of people are traumatized, man. You know, you got to look at it that way. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at something that this guy holding their life in their hands.
Right, and that makes a difference. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for everything you do. All right. Guys, that's Gene Deal. Thank you. Okay. That's an exclusive. Hey, how are you doing? Thank you, sir. Oh, you did? Thank you. I appreciate that. You're the man. Thank you. That's me. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Guys, this was amazing. Just got an exclusive with Gene Deal. I'm getting recognized here. It's
Official government photos of Diddy's hotel room when he was arrested in 2024 have been released. Let's start with the pill bottle, which is clearly not in Sean Combs' name and is in Frank Black's name. If you remember, Cassie repeatedly said that Diddy used the name Frank Black to book hotels and to get things for the freak-offs. In the nightstand, they found this bottle of pills with 2 pink bags full of a pink substance.
And of course, you know that he had his baby oil, which has been a hot topic throughout the case. Plus, he had some in the bathroom. Here's a look of the hotel room when you walked in. Prosecutors just released these images today in court. There was also a hard drive of files that they found inside of the hotel room. Who the hell knows what is on that hard drive? He had these lights set up in the hotel room. There was a bag of cash with about $9,000 estimated in it. This baby oil was found in the tub when the bathroom was raided and when the hotel room was raided. And then we have more pills in the second drawer that was on the other side of the bed. And they found a fanny pack hanging from the side of the bed. What do you guys think? Official government photo.
I know y'all see this picture with Kim Kardashian, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Puffy, Cassie, and guess who's on the far left? Rihanna. Let's talk about it. So for those that really don't understand what's going on, these are industry musician leads who she happens to be. She's nowhere on her level. She's not on her level. She's definitely not on Rihanna's level. So why is she here? Oh, to get what they have. But sadly, it didn't happen. He promised her this. He promised her this. He promised her Ree. But the difference between all of them and her is she's not talented like Beyonce is. She's not talented like Rihanna is. Also, she didn't have the guts to go through with it because they do everything that happened to her happened to them. Please tell me that y'all really don't understand what's going on. Everything that happened to them happened to her. The only difference is he couldn't make a star out of her because she didn't have the talent. Also, Sean Diddy Combs is terrible with money, especially with managing his clients. He F's all of them at the end. All of them. Like, they're end up broke. They end up not having any money. He's a thief. He's a terrible producer if we're going to keep it 100%. She was better off signing with Rock Nation. But that wasn't going to happen anyway because let's be real. He's not signing talentless people. He's not. Cassie is just another Kim. But Kim was willing to lay down with a bunch of men and do all these different things and do all these rituals. I don't think that these people all do this. That's why people keep saying this is a outrage against Black women because we're always abused. This is not about that. This is about the industry falling because God is exposing everybody. And second, all of this is about money. Do you think she would have opened her mouth if she would have got $100 million? If she was worth anything, right? Worth anything financially, because now we're looking at billionaires. Rihanna, B, and Kim, they're all billionaires now. And what is she? She's in the same place she was at when this picture was taken. Like, I would be pissed off too. I would be upset. We're gonna keep it 100. You did everything they asked. You did everything with everybody. You signed all the contracts. You did all the witchcraft. You did all the rituals. And you still don't have no money? Of course you're gonna go and tell. At the end of the day, he knew that. And that's why he gave her that $20 million that first time. The only reason she's in court now is because the federal government subpoenaed her, so she had to testify. But she wasn't gonna bring this back up because she got her $20 million. Really, it was 30, but she had to pay. I think they said the lawyers 10%. They got 10% of that, so they got like 10 million out of her 30 million, right? She got 20. Like, please stop. This is not about race and Black women being abused, and that's not what this is about. This is about money. This is the industry we're talking about. Nothing is as it seems. Please watch Jaguar Right. She's going to explain everything. If you know about the industry, you know that I'm telling the truth. Do you really believe that Beyonce didn't know that she was getting abused? All of these people did. Like, please stop. This is what they do. They've all had to endure what she endured to get to where they're at. She just didn't get what she was promised. This is literally about revenge at the end of the day. Also, she was like this with Kim Porter, right? And Kim told her everything that was going on with Sean. So why would she willingly be with him? because she thought she was better. Let's be 100% real with this. We're gonna get real. She thought she was better, and that this wasn't gonna happen to her because she's pretty and light skinned, and that she was different. You're not different. It doesn't matter what you look like. If they hate women, they hate women. It doesn't matter how light skinned you are. And this is the perfect example of you thinking you got too much dip on your chip, basically. And she was really young, so I know she was real prideful and naive. She got humbled really quick because you weren't as smart as you thought you were. You weren't going to get nothing out of him. This man steals from his artists. There's no way you thought you were going to get a record deal out of him. And it's not that he don't have the money. He just hasn't had the integrity. Again, we're still talking about the industry, so none of them had integrity.
Who will be testifying in the Diddy trial in the near future? We now know an exotic dancer slash S-worker nicknamed the Punisher will be coming to the stand soon. Cassie talked about an S-worker named the Punisher who she was with at a freak-off. It's about to be more in-depth, X-rated stuff about the freak-offs. We're hearing the story of a woman who was R'd over and over all the time for years, and people are like, maybe she wanted it. Okay. We're also getting one of Diddy's personal chefs he says that he attacked her. We're also getting one of Diddy's former personal assistants who may start to piece together some of the things that he had his employees doing that make it a criminal enterprise and not just him doing these things. We're also going to have Cassie's mother on the stand, and you know that is going to be dramatic. Can you imagine the things that woman wants?
Y'all, Diddy trial update, and I am confused. Okay, so let me get this straight, and let me make sure that I'm following this right. Y'all tell me am I wrong or not in the comments. Cassie, the one person who he spent 10 mil on for her not to talk, and she is not involved with this case because he's on trial for RICO. The first whole week of the trial, Cassie is up there, and now the second week of the trial, people is coming up to talk about how he whooped on Cassie. And she not supposed to be involved, and she got paid for whatever she went through. But this whole case so far has been about what he was doing to her. Now listen, I'm not saying that what he did to her wasn't wrong. His ass needs a DV charge, okay? He needs to have a felony DV charge for sure, okay? But the rest of this stuff, and then not to mention all the stuff that now they bringing in Kim Porter name. Now we all know back in the day, Cassie was jealous of Kim. And they had their little run-ins themselves when she used to try to make Kim jealous. Now it's coming up that basically her and Kim was on the same team. Am I tripping right now? Y'all don't remember? Huh? The whole reason why they broke up officially is because he said that was his soulmate. I'm lost, y'all. Huh? This ain't no RICO. First of all, I still got questions about how the hell you got a one-man RICO. But that's for another conversation. This ain't no RICO. This nigga was Ike Turner. These the wrong charges if you ask me. Don't look at him if the nigga was whooping on her like that. But RICO and the $10 million she got, what was that for? If you was just gonna come to court and the whole thing was gonna be about you. Shit, not even interested, bro. Y'all, we just replaying their whole relationship. But it's me though. I'm tripping, y'all. I'm just maybe because we're not in the court, it's not making sense to me. But now they got somebody else up there telling about what he did to Cassie. The one person who reaped the benefits of the whole ordeal. Let's argue in the comments. Y'all gonna tear me up, but I'm just trying to understand. Help me to understand. Help me.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
She did what? They said Cassie FaceTime her husband.
you know, Laura London being mentioned, having association with Diddy after the death of Nipsey Hussle was not on my 2025 bingo card. That being mentioned at the trial, I wasn't expecting that. But it's a lot of A-list celebrities and a lot of things that you wouldn't believe that's getting ready to come out in that trial. I believe if Diddy make it through the trial, that's just my opinion. If he makes it through the trial, there's a lot of stuff that's getting ready to be mentioned. And you want to know how I know? Because one of the names that I could not believe came out even before Diddy had got arrested for what he was arrested for now. Denzel Washington. You know, when this first started happening, that young lady, Allie, mentioned Denzel Washington frequenting those parties. Denzel Washington himself said he would go to the Diddy party, but he said he would leave before the party goers get there. He'll leave before 12. Just, you know, him himself mentioning frequenting those parties, just his name being mentioned, it shocked me at first. But this was the nail that broke the camel's back, the straw, nail, whatever it was. This broke the camel's back. You know, when Diddy got criminally charged for you know, continuing the criminal enterprise, all the stuff he's charged with, Denzel Washington just came out the blue and just started confessing things. He confessed that he would go on 3-4 day long drug binges and just binge. He just mentioned the partying, of course. And then if that wasn't enough, he recently, well, not just recently, I say within, it was this year, he just got baptized. Like, he's trying to wash away the things that happened at that party. This is my opinion, You just can't put nothing past, and that's an A-list celebrity. You can't put nothing past nobody. Now, I don't know what he did at those parties and what he didn't do or whatever. I was not there. I just find it very, very strange, the baptism, the confessions, and everything as soon as Diddy, you know, gets arrested. And there's going to be a lot more people that you would not believe who did some things, some strange things in the middle of the night. Y'all keep up with this trial. It's getting good.
See, a lot of people didn't mention that. I didn't know Denzel about Denzel being there.
So there are reports now that Diddy is spiraling out of control in this courtroom. The word is that when they took a break, Diddy was outside of the courtroom and he stayed by himself, sulking, looking angry, upset about everything, kind of losing his temperament. And then he called over his lawyers one by one and was like, who obviously don't know exactly what's being said, but he looked irate, he looked upset. And then when they went back to the courtroom, while his lawyers were questioning the witness, he was passing them notes, telling them what to say, to the point where the lawyer looked like, or the attorney looked disrupted and was like, oh, looking at the note and then asking the question. And he is upset with his attorneys, irate with them, apparently. And I think at this point, there's chaos with the defense team. I don't think they fully, I mean, they all had their ducks in a row and they're questioning, but at this point, when your client is like throwing things, he's just throwing them for a loop. And these questions, all these things that they come up with in their tactics, they plan all these things. You can't just ask a random question in the middle of your session, because you always have to establish a lead up and a purpose to your question. So I don't know, and I think that
Shocking news. Steele said Diddy ran his empire more like a military operation than a music label.
This is a huge Diddylation, Diddy update, a Diddy date. Diddy went into the courthouse today unshackled in a tan Sean John jumpsuit. This is insane. First of all, he got to go in unshackled because the diddler somehow gets special privileges that none of us would ever get, but he's worried about his image. You're finally worried about your image? Okay, Diddylation. Now, the lawyer proposed the $50 million. It's actually 48 because that is the price of his estate, his mansion in Miami. He's putting up the mansion, baby. Yeah, take a blue light through that place and see what you see on the walls. Let me know. Now, the judge, this is crazy, needs more time to consider if he should let Diddy out of jail.
What? You need more time? What? Judge Subaruni, Rainey, and Sublani, and Rain, and Quain, and Manane, Same, but Rain, Dame, but Rain, Haney. What is your problem? How do you need more time to consider it? What about our safety? What happens if you let him out? I'm fleeing the country. I'm going to see Ellen. Ellen, can I hang out with you in Porsche and make an Oreo cookie? A pizza? What? This is getting crazy. So the judge is going to consider it. The judge is going to let us know next week if Diddy gets out or not.
I wonder if that's true, if they're considering letting him out, because they've been the talk in the streets here today. But I feel like if they don't have him for the charges that they say they did have him for, I see no reason him getting out. But they're gonna have to prove the charges that they have him accused of, not just abusing.
You guys, new photos of Diddy's freak-off supplies that were in his hotel room on the day he was arrested have just been released. So as we can see here, there's literally Ziploc baggies full of Johnson's baby oil. This next photo shows a drawer with what appears to be Astroglide lubricant along with a lighter, something else behind my head that I cannot show on TikTok. Then we have here some type of bag, and it looks like a large wad of cash with Visine and something else in there. Of course, Diddy has to have Visine on him all times. And yet again, we have more baby oil in the bathtub, it looks like. Lots of baby oil in this hotel room. And this is just a photo of the hotel room where Diddy was staying before his arrest. There are also a couple other photos. If you guys want to go look those up, go ahead. I just am going to choose not to show them on here. Very interesting to see the photos of what Diddy had on him at the time of his arrest. I find it very wild that he literally went to New York knowing he was going to be arrested. That was the purpose of him going there. He wanted to even turn himself in. And I think Diddy probably thought, yeah, they'll let me turn myself in, like whatever. I'll turn myself in on the day I want to go in. But before, I am just going to have one last hoorah. And he was sadly mistaken because they came in and just arrested him randomly. Minutes after this photo was taken of Diddy, after Diddy went on a little joy walk with his crew, he came back to his hotel and they arrested him, like right on the spot. As soon as he walked in, he was separated from his crew and he was taken in. Diddy literally was likely planning on one last freak off. That is just wild. Absolutely wild.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
It was terrifying. He was dragging her by her hair. The last night that I spoke to Combs was the night that he physically me. And the last day I spoke to Cassie was when I signed the NDA. That's what Carrie Morgan, a woman that Cassie once called her best friend, just told the courtroom. It's Monday, May 19th, and Carrie Morgan has began her testimony in the Diddy trial. I'm an attorney and I read what happened, so you don't have to. Carrie made it clear that she's only testifying because she was subpoenaed. I do not want to testify. I've moved on with my life, she stated. Carrie and Cassie met as teens in a modeling shoot and were best friends for nearly 17 years until Combs allegedly attacked Carrie. Before that, Carrie said that she spent years around the couple. Carrie described Combs as someone who was generous at times, but also aggressive and controlling. He would call me up to 50 times in a row looking for Cassie, he testified. And she witnessed him physically, Cassie, twice. Once in Jamaica and once in Los Angeles. In Jamaica, she testified that Cassie went to the bathroom and Sean said that she was taking too long. And then she heard Cassie screaming. Carrie ran down the hallway to find Combs dragging Cassie by her hair. She testified that Combs then threw Cassie to the ground and her head hit the brick. They escaped in a golf cart and hid in a ditch while Combs went searching for them. The second time was in the Hollywood Hills when Carrie saw Combs hit and kick Cassie. When she begged his security to intervene, the security refused. Then came the March 2016 hotel incident, where she testified that Combs showed up to Cassie's apartment banging with a hammer. Carrie testified, I don't think that she cared.
Oh shit.
3 more names have been dropped in the P. Diddy trial. During Dawn's testimony and cross-examination, she spoke about an event that happened in 2010 in West Hollywood. The event took place in a restaurant where Diddy allegedly punched Cassie in the stomach, while the likes of Neo, Usher and Jimmy Iovine were present. This then turned into a secret argument between Diddy and Cassie. He then pointed to the door, making her leave the restaurant because she was hunched over, holding her stomach. Now, just because these names have been dropped does not mean that they're going to be entering the courtroom as a witness. However, if these people were present, they should be speaking up about it. Carrie Morgan has now taken the stand. She was Cassie's best friend throughout pretty much the whole relationship between her and Diddy. She is also speaking about events which has happened where Diddy has allegedly attacked Cassie in her presence. Almost everyone who has spoken to back up Cassie's testimony has also suffered the backlash of Diddy. Kerry has told the courtroom how on an occasion Diddy actually assaulted her, allegedly, with a coat hanger and then began to choke her. Buckle up, because I think this trial's going to take off in a whole new direction. Oh shit. 3 more.
Oh shit. Y'all subscribe and hit the like button. Thank y'all for watching. Subscribe so we can follow the Diddy case together. And thank y'all for watching.